Hello again.
Hi.
This is the second time that we've actually done a podcast today, but not the second time it's going to go out today. So I shouldn't really have said hello again, should I?
Well, you could, because people might just think we're wearing the same stuff.
Oh, good point. 2 weeks on the run. Yeah. But you know what? This podcast that we've got now is actually really good timing from the one that they will have heard last week.
It really is, actually. Yeah, good thinking, Alex.
I know, because last week we had on Laura and Tom Bolts.
Oh.
The mother and son. I know, but today it's so fresh for you and me because it's today. But last week, that's what it was for our listeners. And now
it
we're going
might
to be
fresh
interviewing
for binge listeners.
Oh, it could be. But now we're going to. Do you think we've got binge listeners?
I would be a binge listener. I was a binge drinker. I'm a binge shopper. I'm a binge eater. I'm a binge watcher. So I don't watch anything. And then I watch like a whole series in a day and then nothing for months. So a podcast, I'm definitely a binge listener too.
You're just a binge.
Yeah, I'm a big binging, whinging binger.
You're thinking of the word that rhymes with binge now.
It was you. Well, obviously.
Yeah. The word for the woman's vagina.
I'm so glad I didn't accidentally come out with that.
What, that you're a bingy mingy?
Oh, that's so gross.
Do you know, like, if anyone from America, if they're listening, they're going to be wondering what on earth we're talking about. Because that's not a worldwide word.
Just Google it. Just Google it.
Anyway.
DuckDuckGo.
Oh, don't get me started on DuckDuckGo. That's Lisa's search engine because it doesn't spy on you.
No, it gives you real stuff.
Yeah, it's not spyware, is it? It's that it tells you everything and not just Google approved stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly right. DuckDuckGo. Go.
But anyway,
not sponsored by them, by the way. Go on.
But anyway, on the one you've heard last, whether it's last week or 2 minutes ago, we had Laura and Tom Bolts on, and they were a mother and son, both recovered alcoholic and clean. Tom's clean from painkillers and other drugs. Jen, who we're going to be interviewing in a minute, isn't recovering or recovered, but she's actually a child of an alcoholic, and we met her through the volunteer training that we did with Nacoa. And I've just spent the last 7 weeks actually working with Jen because she helped train up the next round of volunteer speakers and helpline workers. And she's got it's not a lovely story, she's lovely. It's a sad story, but she's just amazing, and I can't wait for everybody to hear her story. Should we just let her straight in, like now, while we're live, because she's there waiting?
Yeah, let her in.
Let her in.
While we're letting her in, I just thought we'd say about triggers. So there's going to be some numbers for helplines in the bio of this podcast as well.
Jen's coming in right now, so anyone who's doing the listening bit and not the watchy bit, I'm talking about it because you can't see that she's arriving, and she doesn't know yet, but I'm hoping she can hear us that she's muted, because then she'll unmute and then we'll be able to say hello. But we'll just wait. Hi Jen.
Hi Jen.
We just did the full audio description of you coming into the room.
That was a good audio description, that, Alex. I am really, really impressed. Well done.
I'll have to listen back.
I see you. Oh yeah, you'll have to listen. Oh, I don't know if you want to listen to that intro, Jen.
As long as it was good things, I'm happy with that.
Your bit was good things, but then there was a whole conversation beforehand that just did not need to be said, to be fair. I'll let you listen.
No editing now.
We don't edit.
Going back.
So I was just saying, actually, that we've spent the last 7 weeks working together anyway, haven't we? So we've seen loads of each other.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we've had a great time with Nacoa, and we've been getting involved with the training with the new volunteers, and it's been amazing, and it's been a really good process because I've been able to then introduce myself to be sober as well. So it's been a successful experience all around, really.
Did you find that training this time round, hearing it for the second time, completely different? Like, I know it was exactly the same training, but it felt like it went in more this time.
Yeah, I think it's worth doing it, but I think because the second time round you're not having to really concentrate on the content as much because you've done it. So you're really your mind is more focused on what everyone else is saying and getting more involved in the conversations rather than thinking about the content itself.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good to do, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was really nice, and it was just good to feel a part of something again. Because you know, these types of charities, if you're a volunteer or if you're a part of something like Be Sober, you have to have the passion, and I think that's what drives, you know, organisations like this forward. So I think to be part of it is just, yeah, it's amazing. And meeting guys like yourselves.
Do you know what?
Well, not guys, you can't say guys. I watched your podcast, your live yesterday with Sober Dave, and he got told off for saying guys.
Yeah, we've decided that you can say guys.
Yeah, we
Okay.
Jeez, if you listen back, you want to hear what we just said, Jen.
And that's not the worst of it. The number of times that we have had to actually edit podcasts in the beginning, usually because of me putting my foot in it.
Yeah, believe it or not, because like I think people think that was the other way around.
No, it's usually me because I don't know things right. So we've talked about this before, but was it Alan Carr? Is that who it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, was it Alan Carley's that I talked about?
Oh yes, it was. Yeah, I was thinking of the comedian Alan Carr, but you're talking about like the quit smoking, quit drinking Alan Carr.
I didn't know there was a comedian called Alan Carr. I thought that was someone else completely.
There is, isn't there? There's a comedian called that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Do you know Alan Carr?
Well, anyway, the author Alan Carr, the very first time I put my foot in it, I didn't edit it because I thought it's not a massive deal. We'll just put it out there. And my husband listened back to it and was like, you can't leave that in there, Alex. Basically, what I did was I said to Lisa, we'll get him on our podcast. And then Lisa said, Alex, that's impossible. He's not alive anymore. And instead of kind of just moving on and being like, you know, I'm not going to do it again for a second time, but instead of just moving past it, I made this big hole of apology and all sorts. It was dead awkward. Anyway, we got rid of it.
A deeper hole.
yeah, I really did. So, but anyway, back to you and your story, because you didn't go sober because of a drinking issue necessarily, did you? You didn't have any kind of underlying concern about your drinking or anything like that. You just happen to be sober now. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I'll give a brief background because I know I've talked to you in the past, but I'm basically the 5th generation of alcoholics. So from my mum's side, my great grandmother, my uncle, my nan, and my mum are all alcoholics, and there's me. And I take after that side of the family so much, more so than my sister. So it was, everyone in my family was always like, oh, that's how you're going to end up, you're going to be that way. And I was never ever a big drinker anyway, and I'm quite a small person, so I could never handle it anyway. It wouldn't take, my nickname was always like 2 Gins Jen, because I was like so drunk after 2 drinks. And I just decided, you know, that's not the path I want to go down. And I was also, I think I had a problem with alcohol in a different way, because it made me so aware of the damage it can cause. And I was really scared and nervous and anxious that when I did drink, oh, maybe this will be the night that I turn into an alcoholic, or maybe this will be the night that I drink too much and then can't stop. And it was almost the fear of that happening that really made me just decide, you know what, I'm just not going to do it.
You've been stopped for over a year now, is that right?
I've been sober on and off. I say that for about 4 years. I had a drink on my wedding day, of course. But I had a couple of hen-dos, but I've never really drank like I used to when I was younger. I've special occasions, you know, I used to have a Bailey's on Christmas Eve, and that was pretty much it for the year. It's never been, you know, a big night out. So I would say about 4 years now that I've really, really reined it in and slowed it down. It
fascinates me now, right? Being like, there would have been a time where I've got exactly the same thoughts as you. Like, of course I'd have had a drink on my birthday, my wedding, blah, 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 blah. But it really fascinates me now. And I was having this conversation with my, I call her my cousin. She isn't my cousin, but anyway, my cousin the other day. I was having this conversation with her.
Honestly, my neighbour's my auntie, and I've known her my whole life, but she's definitely not my auntie.
No, well, she's not my cousin, but we're having this conversation. I was like, well, she said, I just enjoy it, just the odd one, and I'm like, but why? I can't get my head around it now, and I must. I could never have the odd one anyway, and I know Lisa was the same. We just didn't see the point in that. Do you see a point in one? And I'm asking that out of genuine curiosity, by the way, not out of judgment.
Yeah, no, I don't. And actually, I think it's about 2 Christmases ago, and I've always had this tradition of having a Baileys on Christmas Eve, and it's always been something I've done. And for the last 2 years now, I've gone, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
I've poured it, and I've gone, I don't see the point. Like, what's the point? What is the point in it? Because it just doesn't, it makes no sense. Like, why does it have to be alcohol? Why can't I find a really nice elderflower cocktail that's got no alcohol in it that I can change it to instead? Like, why does it have to be alcohol?
Yeah.
Jen, we found this Christmas from Dry Drinker. They do an Irish cream, non-alcoholic, and it's just like Baileys, but honestly, it's even nicer because realistically, when you have Baileys, you like the creaminess and what have you, and the alcohol is kind of like, oh, you know, it gives you a bit of a shudder. So it's that without the shudder. It's really, really nice.
It is nice, actually. I keep forgetting about that, but I bought a full crate of it.
Yeah.
And didn't drink them because it's
I've
just
still
like,
got one in the fridge from Christmas. So, you know, when this is like what we talk about a lot, but you know, when you say we drink for the taste of it or we like the taste of it. So I've still got that Irish cream, which I'm telling you is lovely. And it's been in my fridge since Christmas. Like, that would never have happened if it was alcoholic, would it?
No.
Well, it'd have gone. It'd have well gone. And it's relatives.
and it's all its cousins and uncles.
From up north. We were down your neck of the woods the other day, as you well know, while I did my...
Do you know what? It's been so long. I've not been able to get down there or up there even for about it'll be 2 years this summer that I've not been able to get back. So it's been really difficult.
Do you know I got bloody lost in the tunnels? Did I tell you that?
No.
Right. The Birkenhead Tunnel. But no, right, there's a roundabout right in the centre where I needed to be on Dale Street, which I don't know whether you know the names of the street. But anyway, I had to be on Dale Street. So I came down, it was like the 5th exit, and I knew I was doing it wrong. And I just turned into the tunnel. And once you're in, that's a bloody long tunnel, isn't it?
Yeah, it goes to Birkenhead.
Yeah, so you know what she did, Jen? When I took her the day after and I was driving, we're getting there and she's going, my sat nav were telling me where to go, and she's going, I don't think you go this way. I think you should be going that way. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not really going to listen to you, am I? Because you got lost in a tunnel yesterday.
And had to pay toll fees for somewhere I didn't want to be, and then had to do the drive of shame round to the other side while they directed me in the free lane. It was so embarrassing.
I know exactly where you were as well, because that roundabout's got like 100 exits and you just missed by one. You missed it by one.
Yeah, I did. I know, and easy done, but I didn't miss it the next time, and Lisa didn't miss it either. So there's just a non-relevant story about Liverpool. Anyway, can we ask you about your kind of backstory? Because last week's podcast, which is coming out this week actually, but last week's recorded podcast, as people listen now, was a mother and a son, and it's really relevant. They were both in recovery, but it's really relevant because you know, above other stories that I've heard, you know, we've interviewed Kerry, obviously I've got my own story, Josh, Lisa's got her own story, but your story is quite a difficult one, isn't it? Because whereas with me, my dad's no longer alive, you're very much still living your story, aren't you?
Yeah, still am, yeah. So unfortunately, I said I've lost my great-grandmother, my uncle and my grandma. And my grandma died 6 years ago this year, which was horrendous because none of us knew she was an alcoholic. She was a secret alcoholic, so she drank of an evening when she went to bed and got it all out of her system then. And then I went round to her house one day and she looked like a Simpson. She was yellow. And I was like, what is going on? And she went to hospital and she died 5 days later. Wow. So it was a lot. But my mum is an alcoholic, and my mum actually blamed me for her death at the hospital when she died. And she turned up drunk at the hospital and it was all my fault and whatever. My nan and granddad had a massive influence in bringing me up because I lived with them for many, many years. So I don't know why my mum drinks, but even now she tells me it's my fault. And every week I get something to say it's my fault. Or it was probably about a week ago, she was messaging me telling me never to speak to her again and she hates me and everything that's happening is my fault. And I'm 33, you know, and I live 200 miles away and I don't speak to her, and it's still my fault. But the most challenging thing is my mum and dad are still together. So if I want to spend time with my dad, I have to also spend time with my mum. So it's really false situation that I'm thrown into consistently, and I have to just pretend that everything's okay all the time for the sake of my dad. So it's hard.
You've got a good relationship with your dad though, haven't you? I mean, we did
I've
a
got
live
good
a while
relationship with my
ago.
dad. Yeah, I've got a good relationship with my dad, and the difficult thing with my dad is he will always put my mum first, no matter what. Even if I don't speak, if I say, oh, you know, I think I told you about the wedding, I told my dad I wasn't inviting my mum to the wedding because I wasn't sure about what was going to happen, and his response was, if she doesn't come, I don't come. So
what happened there? Did you invite him?
Yeah, because I knew my dad wouldn't come, and then if my dad didn't come, I knew my sister wouldn't come, and if my sister didn't come, I knew my granddad wouldn't come, and it was just I would have dad had no one there. My mum's brother didn't come in the end, my uncle. So I would have had none of my family at the wedding.
So did it play out okay, or was it how you thought it'd go?
Yeah, it was. I really made sure that I made the right decisions. So I didn't have my mum there the morning of the wedding. I didn't take her to pick my dress with me. I didn't involve her in anything until the day, because I thought the lead up to it is challenging as it is. I don't want to put anything in the way that's going to make me feel any more insecure than I already do, you know, in life. So I made sure I made those decisions that day and made sure that I was in control. And then kind of when I got the church situation out the way, and we got married in a church in my family church where I grew up, and I'm the fifth generation to get married there. So it was really important for me to do that. And I just thought, you know, once that's done, whatever she does then is, I don't care about it. It was about me and my husband in that moment. And the rest of the day was absolutely fine. But you constantly think, what's she doing? Where is she? Who's she talking to? How much has she drank? And, you know, obviously there is alcohol everywhere. We did have non-alcoholic options, but it's a wedding, you know.
It's going to be there, yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? You're on high alert, aren't you, as a COA?
Say that
Go on,
again.
Lisa.
I'm just saying, it just must be so difficult that you said then about you've got a good relationship with your dad, but that knowing what you said, that if it came down to it, it would choose your mum. Like, I can't even possibly imagine, Jen, how that must feel for you. This stuff that, like, you know, when, like, now that comes to me from my past, when I was a child, and I kind of learned to deal with it. So I just don't know how you do that now when that's going on all the time. How do you?
I don't deal with it very well at times, and it's something that is a continuous development for me. And I was saying to my husband only a few days ago, actually, you know, I've never felt a priority for anybody. I've never been in a position where I've gone, do you know what, I confess to that person. And my husband does massively. My husband's extremely lucky in the sense that he's got an amazing relationship with his family, and his family are incredible. And I've gained that, you know, in being with him as well. I've gained another family through that, and they're my support function as well. But you know, you just constantly feel, I mean, it's the whole thing of, you know, everyone says, oh, just cut her out your life, but she's still my mum, and she's still my dad. It's so difficult to break that down and cut it so black and white like that. But I think it's something that will continue to happen, unfortunately. You know, I know, and I've said it before, if the house was on fire, my mum would go back in for the alcohol before me, or before my sister, and my dad would go back in for her. That's always, I've just known that's just how it's been.
God.
It's never been any different, and I don't know any different.
It's just not fair, is it? Like, honestly, listening to you now, it makes me, we've all got our own reasons for stopping drinking.
Yeah.
But it makes me so angry at alcohol. It makes me so angry that it's so widely available. It just makes me so angry that the help's not available. And, it's people like you doing that amazing work with Nacoa that's going to make such a difference. And I think it's incredible that you're choosing to do that when it would have been so easy to go down the same
Yeah.
path as the
I,
rest of your family.
yeah, I had all the options there to pick up a drink and stay in Liverpool and be in that environment and do that life, but I just didn't want it. And what really got me was when I wasn't really old enough at the time to see my great grandmother and my uncle pass away, even though I knew them, but seeing my nan, who I literally adored, like she was practically my mum, and to see what her body went through and the physical damage that it does to you at the end, it's just not worth it. And I can't remember where I saw it, but they should put images on alcohol bottles like they do with cigarettes. That should be on there, because your body just completely just falls to bits, and it's such a slow and painful period of your life when you drink too much, and it's so available. There should be a huge warning sign around alcohol, and there just isn't enough. And that's why I want to do the charity work, because more people need to be informed, because it's not
so
fair.
bloody quick as well, isn't it? Like, I know, Alex, with your dad, but my stepdad passed away through alcohol.
Right.
It was his liver. He had a massive heart attack. Then his liver's failed, and then every single organ in his body failed. And within a week in intensive care, it wasn't here anymore. And I just think we don't see these things, do we, people? Or we do. People do know it. Do we just block it out?
I think it's that though, Lisa. You know what? We imagine that everybody who dies of alcohol dies in the way that very much like Jen just described, then, goes yellow and dies of liver failure. That's how we imagine it. But actually, the vast majority of the deaths are through stroke and heart disease.
Yeah.
My dad's death certificate reads heart disease and then secondary cirrhosis of the liver. But actually, the cirrhosis and the alcohol caused the heart disease. He ultimately died of a heart attack. There's no mention of alcohol on there at all, but he spent his life drinking too much. He really did. And like you with your grandma, I idolized my dad. He was my world. He was an amazing man. He was talented. He was so clever and funny and all of those things. And you just think, how can this drug that just takes people, and it doesn't, we talk about being quick, it's quick at the end, but the moment they're addicted, it's taken them from you. Like you say, your mum put in alcohol before you. My dad, I do believe it was an amazing dad, and I know he loved us, but he was addicted. It came first. So versus going swimming on a Sunday morning or out on a Saturday night, it would have been out on a Saturday night. It takes your family and your friends and your loved ones a long time before it kills them.
Yeah,
me, it's how bloody normalized it is as well. Like with my stepdad, he was a landlord of a pub, so it was just accepted that, like, he died at 56. Like, I look at my mum now, who's just turned, was she 58 last week, 59? I think she's been 58 for ages, it seems. But I look, and she actually said, like, the other week, because my mum's sober now, which is amazing, but she was like, oh my God, I'm older than Terry was, because he was quite a lot older than my dad, 20 years older than my mum. But that realization of how young he actually was, 56, and it was alcohol, but because he was a landlord, everyone just thought it was like a normal thing.
And cheers to them when they go.
Absolutely plastered.
My dad was at Lisa's stepdad's funeral. They'd known each other a very, very long time. Right. And they were all in the pub afterwards getting drunk, celebrating his life. It's like...
It was awful. I've not even thought about that for ages, but even then, I was 18 when that happened, and I got absolutely plastered. I didn't know any other way. I just didn't. That is what you did. We had the funeral at the pub. Everybody came to the pub. I remember like really crying emotion, and I'm not like
You're
that
still not.
really. I know I'm a bit more. No, I wouldn't really do that.
Mind you, she's better. She's better now. She was crying this morning over the warmth in our Get Fit session. There's another little story, but we'll talk about that after.
But yeah, just thinking about the funeral and how pissed I got at such a young age and how out of control I was.
Yeah.
It's just heartbreaking. I just think, honestly, Jen, the work that you're doing is so good. You're just such you don't deserve that. You just don't, and it makes me really sad.
But I don't think anyone does. And I wasn't, unfortunately, my circumstances and where the environment I was brought into, it's unfortunate, but I also have that choice myself.
Yeah.
It's not, like you said, it's easier to go down that route, but I'm also my own person, and I had that decision to say, do you know what, I'm going to like cut this now and say, right, that's the end of the streak. I'm not going to have that moving forward. And I was really, really lucky to meet the most amazing guy, and he really has helped a part of that, journey as well. And he, I think finding people like that, and I've met amazing friends through him, through his friendship group, and they're so supportive. Every time I do something with Nacoa, all of them are there like cheering me on, and it's amazing to get to have that. And I think if you surround yourself with people who are like that, and put yourself in those circumstances, your mindset changes, and then you just start thinking, you know what, yeah, it's a rubbish situation, but that's their problem, not mine. And you start to then try and pick yourself up that way. And it's not easy. It's taken me an awful long time to get there, but I think you've just got to keep trying and keep trying to do what's right, really.
With the work you do in Nacoa, are your family aware of what you're doing? Your sisters, your mum, your dad, are they aware of what you're doing, and how does that go down?
Yeah, my sister doesn't watch any of it. We're very different, and I think a lot of that is we're just very different people, and she's very close with my dad, more so than me, I think, and which is fine, but I think she is very protective over him. So she doesn't like it if I say, I know he's going to prioritize my mum, and she's like, no, he doesn't, and she's very shielded with that. And my mum, I don't know what she'd think, but I don't think she really cares what I do, to be honest. She's never really taken an interest in anything I do anyway, so why this? And my dad is a complete in denial about the whole thing. He doesn't think he knows she drinks too much, but he just doesn't think it's a problem, because when she has a day where she's sober or not sober, doesn't drink, everything's okay again. So he very much just sweeps it under the carpet, and he doesn't really have any association with what I'm doing.
And do they get on, Jen, when your mum is drinking? Is the relationship all right between your mum and your dad?
No.
They get on?
No, it's a really toxic environment, to be honest. It's not a nice place to be.
It's so hard, isn't it? Because I really can empathise. Like, I know that the things I say upset my mum. My mum accepts that my dad had a drink problem. She fully accepts it. And she knows the kind of past that we had as a family.
Yeah.
She accepts that. I know she holds some regret about a lot of regret about it. And there's no hard feelings there. She can't change. Nobody can change the past, and so on. And I find it incredibly difficult at times to talk about my dad, simply because my mum's here and I don't want to put her through the pain of raising bad memories, when actually she holds a lot of dear memories about my dad as well. And a lot of, she would say, we did the best we could, we loved you, and it's all true. That is all true. They did do the best they could. They did love me. My mum does love me, all of those things. And I find it hard to talk about still. And that's with the parent who was the drinker no longer alive.
Yeah.
I really struggle to even empathise slightly with how that must feel for you, trying to tell your story, trying to raise awareness. And you do hold a level of respect still. You do it really, you do.
Yeah, I do, because they're still my parents at the end of the day. But I also know that I'm my own woman. I've got my own life, and I need to make sure that I'm okay, because my mental health has suffered for years. You know, I had an eating disorder. I still have an on and off issue with food now, you know, because it's a level of control, and I don't probably like to admit it, but I do. You know, I have a massive complex of how I look. I've thrown complete tantrums before and not wanting to leave the house because I can't find anything to wear, even though I'm a woman and I have loads of clothes. You know, and you know, I've hugely suffered, and trying to say that to them, and the reasons why I'm like that, it's just my dad's very, very much of a, oh, you know, just have a cup of tea and everything will be okay. And he's not an emotionally charged man. He doesn't understand about the level of emotion that I need, or the level of emotional support I need. He hasn't got to give, and that's just him. He's just not like that at all.
Did you relate to the roles, you know, the family roles? So like the enabler and the dependent. Yeah. Which child are you?
I like to solve everyone's problems. I like to, you know, I was always the one running in there. As soon as I heard the drawer open, I'd run in there, take the bottle off her and put it down the sink and think everything would be okay if I do it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if I ever heard them argue, and I'd go down there and try and separate it and try and get involved, which I think is why I get the brunt of it, because I'm always the one there fighting everyone's battles.
Yeah. Because I'm definitely 100% the hero child. I've been through different phases. I've definitely been, I know this isn't a term, but I've been the dickhead as well. That definitely isn't in the descriptions of which child it is. But I went through that in my 30s. But, you know, I really, that was the training. After that training on the family roles, you didn't want to go back, did you, Lisa?
Did you not?
No.
Struggled?
I did. I struggled with all the training, to be honest. I think not really for this podcast.
No, not really for any specific reasons either. I'm not trying to put her on the spot, but the point is that the training's actually quite difficult, isn't it? Because it brings out emotions and feelings that you didn't even know were there.
I think when you go through it as a COA, I think you think you know. Yeah. The ins and outs, and then you do the training, and then all these words come up, and then you start labeling yourself, which I think can be quite dangerous, because you then start coming up with all these names and all these labels start coming. You think, oh God, that's me, and you know, am I ready to be a volunteer, or am I ready to do the training? And I think because of those labels, even though they're true and they're just delivering the message, and everything on there was amazing, I think it can bring up triggers that you potentially didn't think that were there. Because you start putting yourself into pockets. You know?
Start questioning as well. I think that's why I struggled. I started questioning so many things that I'd not questioned before, and I wasn't really ready to kind of delve into all of that.
You don't see it necessary delving either, do you, Lisa?
No,
really?
Not really. We'd gone on the training to kind of help our members, and so we could point people in the right direction. And that is what I found really difficult, is rather than me kind of focusing on what I wanted to go on the training for, I started really kind of going into myself and what had happened and how much I could relate with certain things. And I was just like, you know what, I don't want to do that. That's not for me, because every time I come away, I feel sad, miserable, and I'm going back over and over and over things. Whereas I definitely don't do that. Josh would say I'm a masker, and I like to mask all these things, but I'm happy doing that. That's fine. That's good for me. I'm happy doing that.
If it works, you keep going.
But we had whole conversations around it afterwards, and I was like, there's one session left. Just come to the one session, and then you trained and you're done. But it was everything, and for both of us, this, you know, like you start when you learn about the roles of the family roles. Not only do you start to look back on your own past, which is different for everybody, and you might say every parent drinks too much, I don't know. But you also start to look at yourself as a parent, and I think that's what's really challenging. And, you know, you start to go, oh, well, have I made my child turn into that role and that role and that role? And it's really hard to think, you know, it is hard. But then again, you know, like Josh says, every family has a level of dysfunction. There's more families have dysfunction than not.
Yeah, I think for me it was the when I kind of realized my dad came under the codependent label. And then that really hit home for me, because I didn't really know why he was the way he was. And then when they started reading all that out, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my dad. Like he's just in complete denial. He likes to, if my mum has a good day, it's like everything is fine. It's like nothing has ever happened, and no one said any bad words, or she's never drank. It's like everything's okay again until she drinks again, and then it's, oh, don't worry, it'll be fine. She'll sleep it off, and it'll be fine tomorrow. And I think putting my dad in that category was a big one for me.
It's funny, isn't it? You know, it's a little bit different, but I was married to an alcoholic, and I actually even relate to that, because you know, we would get to, I used to dread weekends. I'd be like, oh, it's coming to a weekend, it's going to be awful, it's going to kick off, this thing's going to happen. And then it would, and then on Monday it would be like, you would just try and, does your dad drink?
No.
Does he not?
Because he had like a beer every now and then, but not, but he doesn't help himself, because and this is what really infuriates me about the situation. If we go and visit for the weekend, or if we go down for Christmas or Easter, he's got vodka, gin, Prosecco all laid out on the kitchen cabinet. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're literally advertising her to drink more. Like, what? And then even if we go to family functions or whatever, it's like, oh, she's only having one. It's like, she shouldn't be doing that. Like, she's got a problem. She shouldn't, you know, we've been to weddings and stuff, and she's got herself into right states where she's not gone to the bathroom and gone all over the floor, and we've had to take her home, and even then it's like, oh yeah, but she's only having one. It's like, it doesn't matter whether she has one or 100. She's an alcoholic. She shouldn't be drinking at all. Like, you shouldn't be advertising for it to, or encouraging her to do that. I almost feel for dad, it's like he'll put it out so she drinks it and then goes to bed and then leaves him alone. It's almost like that's his coping mechanism.
And that's a bit what you were getting at there, isn't it? A little bit. It's almost on the same thing, Lisa. If you just kind of join in or enable, whatever it is, the term, I don't know what the term is. Join in. If you can't beat them, join them. And that's what my mum used to say as well. It's an easier life, isn't it? Because ultimately,
it's so hard. It's so difficult to live with somebody that drinks too much.
And ultimately, no matter what, somewhere underneath the drink is the person, and the person is still there somewhere. You know, like I say, with my dad, he was a talented man, he was funny, he was, you know, so it might be hard for us to find that, but your dad must have fallen in love with somebody.
And they were very young. My mum was 19 when they got married, and when she had me, so they were quite young, but that's why she says she drinks, is because I was born. That's her reason.
Jen.
So it's I know that, and I think because it's, a lot of people say to me, oh, they don't mean it, they're drunk, like she doesn't mean it, blah blah blah, but she's drunk all the time and she always says it. So for me, it's like, well, maybe she does mean it. Maybe she was too young to have children, maybe it wasn't the right time. But I also think, that might be true, but you know, you don't need to keep telling me. there was a situation, and I'll never forget, and this was what really broke me, I think, was when I was in out with a workers night out years ago. I was probably about 21 at the time, and my mum was on her Christmas night out with the school she works in, and we were in separate functions, and my dad said, oh, I'll pick you up, because I was never one for staying out till 4 a.m. I was like, pick me up at midnight with a McDonald's and a hot water bottle, please. And my mum went home the same time. So I said, well, why don't you just pick us both up at the same time, make life easier and whatever, you know, we're both home safe. He said, okay. So I walked to get my mum, and as I walked in the bar, I was like waving at her, and the girl next to her, I didn't know she worked with my mum at the time, and she said, oh, someone's here to see you. And she turned around and said, I think it's your daughter. And she turned around and looked at me and said, I've only got one daughter, meaning my sister. And I was like, what the hell? I hadn't spoken to her. I hadn't seen her all day. We'd left the day before from what I thought on pretty much like, you know, normal terms. There was nothing, no cross words said. And I said, come on, Mum, we've got to go. And then she was like, I don't want to go with her. I hate her. She's not my daughter. And it was just so I just couldn't believe it. And I was like, I can't believe you just said that. Like, that's just complete. And then from that point on, I know that she probably did mean it. She probably has some sort of feelings towards me because she had me young, and it might have ruined her.
Did she have postnatal depression, Jen? I'm not like, see,
I don't know.
My side of me, I look for reasons, right? So I'm like, there's got to be like, because that could be a thing, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The only reason I don't think that was a thing is because my sister was born 18 months later.
Yeah.
And they have, relatively, when they were younger, they had a really good relationship. And so we lived with my grandparents when I was born, and then my mum and dad moved out and I stayed, and then they had my sister. And the reason being that is they wanted a fresh start, basically. That was the reason.
Do you think maybe, you know, as you've got older, the fact that you've challenged it, the fact that you haven't just accepted what's gone on has made the relationship difficult? I mean, what I'm getting at is, did you ever have a nice relationship with your mum, or has it always been quite strained?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always been quite forced. I mean, as you said, you know, there is moments when she is nice, you know, she is a nice person. And there was moments when we were younger where we had really good days. And, you know, she was my mum, but then it just didn't mean much because in the evening she just drank again. So it was almost like she was just trying to get through the day to then go home and drink. I don't know. I think I love my mum because she's my mum, and I think there is some sort of level. There is a connection there, but at the same time, I know her priorities don't lie with me, and I know that, and that's a fact. It's been 33 years, and you know I can't remember the last time she said happy birthday to me or called me on my birthday or made any sort of effort. It's always me having to make the effort with them.
Have you ever thought of like just, have you ever tried this? I don't, but just literally cutting yourself off from the body?
Yeah. It's difficult because I'm quite a family orientated person, and it's very difficult to do that, because even though I know my dad's feelings towards my mom, I can't let go of that relationship because that's all I have with my family and my sister. I'm really close with my sister, like really, really close. And I just know if I did that, I know I would lose it.
Oh, it is hard. It's so hard. You know, people, that the saying blood's thicker than water, it's been twisted over the years. And, you know, like people stay loyal to your family, stay loyal to your family. But genuinely what you're describing is just an example of blood being thicker than water, in that, you know, you don't want to let go of the good bits. You don't want to cut yourself off because of something that you haven't got any control over anyway. I get it. It must be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I saw them at the weekend, actually. I haven't seen them for about a year nearly, and I was so anxious about going. We met halfway at a park in Birmingham, and I was so anxious, it was ridiculous. And I was going there, and my husband kept saying to me, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine." I just didn't know how she was going to turn up or what state she was going to turn up in. But even to the point where I'd arranged this day to meet, and every week for the last 6 weeks, she's messaged me saying to not speak to her again. She's cancelling. She doesn't want to come. She doesn't want to see me. And it's like, you're not making this any easier. And I'm really trying to like make it as normal as it can be. And I messaged my dad saying, listen, if she doesn't want to come, just don't bring her. I'd rather just her not be there and make the situation worse. Yeah. And then he messaged back to say, I'm making the situation worse because I'm telling him what she's saying, and now they've had an argument because of what I've said.
Oh, it's so hard.
It's just like I can't just do that. So I have to just try and keep it as neutral and just let her attack me, and then just not respond and just try and ignore it as best I can.
That's what I meant at the beginning when I say you're living your story still. These things have happened to lots of people that they can almost draw a line under because somebody's not alive anymore, or because they've cut tie, or whatever the reason, but you are really living it. I mean, the work you do for Nacoa now, just kind of before we wrap up, what if anybody is listening who as an adult is a COA and going through what you're going through, or has been through it as a child, what can they do? What do you think they should be doing? Do they get therapy? Is there anywhere they go to? What do you think?
I think talking about it is massive, and when I was younger, I don't know if I've said this before, but in primary school, my mum was a teacher in my school, so there was no one for me to really talk to because she was there. So it was really difficult for me to be heard by people. So I think if you can speak to someone, then definitely reach out, because I think now, especially nowadays, there's so much more about it with, the Be Sober charities, and there's loads of other charities that are out there at the moment which are creating a lot more awareness. And I think the more we can do that, the more people will be able to go, okay, we can help. But I think talking about it and voicing how you feel, because the feelings that they're having are completely valid. And it doesn't matter if they're your mum, your dad, your sister, uncle, brother, whatever. If they're making you feel uncomfortable and making you feel sad, then talk about it. It's so important to talk about it to anyone who will listen.
Whilst we're on this, and this is just for people who are listening, if you do feel after this episode triggered in any way, we do have a Be Sober affiliated counsellor on our website who specialises in trauma. She's called Lynn, and if you visit the website and go look under coaches and counsellors, you will find access to her information there. And we'll also put links on the podcast to Nacoa. Jen will put your links on as well if you want to send us those, because I know you've always said if anyone wants to get in touch, you're happy to talk to them.
Absolutely, yeah. A problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah, it's a good way to be, and I've absolutely loved working with you over the last 7 weeks and getting to know you more. And this is kind of the third thing we've done together now.
Yeah.
So it's really lovely, and it's good to see you. And
yeah.
you share your story in a really humble way, and you don't deserve it, but like you said, who does? So
no one does. And I think the more I share it, the more, if I can only help one person, or if anyone can relate, even just to make them think that they're not on their own, just to even think it, even if they don't do anything about it, that's just so important to know that.
Oh, thank you so much.
I forgot to show you, I printed off my Be Sober label for to stick on my shirt.
Let me just tell you that last night when we were talking on the training,
I love it.
Jen said, "Oh, don't worry, I've got my. I'm going to make sure that I wear a t-shirt, but I haven't bought my t-shirt yet, so I am going to put my logo on." I didn't actually think you'd do it, Jen.
That's so cute, Jen. I absolutely love it.
I'm all about the merch, okay? If you can advertise it on a t-shirt, I've got it.
Oh, that's like a really good end of that one.
It's really good. And for anybody who does want a Be Sober t-shirt, get on the website and check the shop out.
Yeah, absolutely. Buy all the merch.
Thanks so much, Jen, and thanks for coming on again. It's been lovely speaking to you.
Yeah, and it's nice to actually meet Lisa as well. I've not actually met you before, so it's lovely.
I know, it's really lovely. I've watched you live and seen everything that you've done, so I feel like I have done, but no, I haven't. So yeah, thank you.
Just hang on back at the end and we'll have a quick chat. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Bye everyone.